my stream. Welcome to my stream. This is my stream. Welcome. Yeah, this is my stream. This is my stream. And welcome to you who have come to stream. Anything is possible at my stream. You can do anything at my stream. The infinite is possible on my stream. The unattainable is known on my stream. Welcome to my stream. This is my stream. Welcome to my stream. Welcome. This is my stream. Welcome to my stream. Welcome.
Hello. Let me make sure this is working. Because it says on my end the connection's poor because the resolution's too high. But you guys let me know in chat if you're here, if everything looks good, or if it looks bad, and we can figure it out. Or I'm just going to stream to myself for an hour, and we'll see what's going on. Let me just share this out. Prime. Oh, that's nice. Live now! Exclamation mark. Share this. Kind of hang. Hide that. Get things going. See if anybody's in here, which I don't think anybody is in here. Let me just toss this on here. I'm probably gonna be talking to myself for an hour, which is fine. Stream looks good to me though. Looks good on Twitch, looks good here. Smack that there. Yeah, that should work. Alright, cool. Chat. Anyway, this is going to be on my YouTube channel regardless. Let me just make sure my mic is going, which it is. And heck, I got all day. I'll just hang out here until someone pops in. Let me just see if this is working. Yeah, everything seems fine. Cool. Well, anyway, my name is Bradley Jack Design. Welcome to this stream. I'm going to try and stream more often. I want to do it for like an hour every so often. So let me hit a couple buttons here actually because this is not live. There we go. So what I want to talk about today is these trading cards I got made. So if I go like this. So I got these trading cards made of me, kind of making fun of realtors and how they advertise themselves. I say, we need a graphic designer who wants to do that. So I got these cards made to pass out at the National Sports Card Convention. I passed these out mainly. The one you have on your screen, which I'll show you. And I wanted to break that down because I thought they were cool. I passed them out to people that I thought could use cards, some social content creators that I think are doing a good job. Hopefully they can use me as a service to make cards for them, for charity, something to do with sponsored gigs, deals, stuff like that, and what have you. So what I want to do today is I want to, and this is going to break, give me a second. get rid of that intro. So I wanted to show how I created this card and how I set it up to be printed correctly. So this is a template that I use, and I have it in a video on my YouTube channel that you can watch. But this video here, I want to show you, this is the card design itself. I've got a bleed, that's what this green is. And I have this white layer, which we're going to talk about a lot today. And then I have these hollow effects that, if you want to mock up to see how it works, that's essentially what they're for. And those are available on my my website, Bradley Jack Design, which is not on the screen. But I have these you can buy. There's a whole bunch of these in pretty high resolution. Yeah, 4,000 pixels that you can use to mock up stuff like this. So what I want to show you today is how I designed this, how I set everything up, and then how I set up the white layer. That's pretty much what I want to talk about today. So I'm going to hide everything on here, and we'll just sort of showcase what everything is. So as you can tell, this is a really weird, goofy design. You know, it's me standing in front of like a body of me standing in front of space. So let me break this down here. So most everything I do starts with some sort of composition. So I started with this photo of me, and I knew I wanted this sort of rectangle in the front with me standing on it. And I've got a bunch of stuff applied to me. So it started like this. I had a couple photos of me that I wanted on here, and that's for contrast. We've got a big guy, little guy. I do that in a lot of stuff I make. I've got my name down here. I've got a couple cards floating in here. And these are actually part of a different product I have on my website. It looks like this most of the time. This is backwards because I flipped it in the other composition. But I have these one touches that you can download and add your own card to it. So you just double click here, add your card. So I've got this like Suni Lee design in here still, just because it's a working file. So I added those two on here. So with that, with this composition, I wanted to add a bunch of goofy stuff. I found stuff online, and I wanted this sort of psychedelic thing. So starting off, we've got me. We've got these floating cards around here. I wanted to add some grid, so I've got a grid down here. And I actually added a bit of a rainbow coloring to it, which you can't really see on the card because it's so small, but it looks cool. Then I put a grid in the background. So I think we got a grid here, which is cyan, which is just the color I like to use. And then we have some stuff going on in the background. So in the background, I have this photo of the eclipse from a while ago that I just added a color overlay set to multiply to make it cyan. And then what I did was I duplicated the grid back here and set it to Gaussian blur and gave it a bit, I gave it a drop shadow so it has like a glow. And I set it to screen, and I have it do that in just like random spots. Like I painted a mask on here just randomly. Then I have this photo of some nebula I found from NASA. Thanks, NASA. Oops. And then what we did here was I've got a levels layer and a gradient map. Let me see if this works. A gradient map.
Gradient map.
I haven't hit that in a while. So the levels layers just makes all the darks darker, and the gradient map turns it black and white. So it just has this sort of aura behind me. Now I wanted something cool on me here. So what I actually did was I painted my face in black. I painted it red, but then made it black. And then I added that same grid in the background and just sort of pasted it on top of my body. But then I wanted me to glow. So I have this photo of me. And if I turn that on, this is in its own group on top of it. Just me cut out, basically my arms. So it's my clothes is glowing. So I'm some sort of glowing entity was the idea. So that puts me there. Then we've got this. So I added this grid genius floating around me like a sign you might see in like Blade Runner. There's a tutorial I followed on how to do this. In Illustrator, that'd be a different video, but you can find them. I found a video quickly. Basically, you make a pattern that says whatever you want, and then you apply it to a 3D object. So that's what I did there, and to make it more interesting, I added drop shadows, which are adding color, and the drop shadows are actually they're set to, they're actually both set to normal, and then an outer glow, and the outer glow is set to screen. So it's glowing around me, and that is cut to the top of my body, so it adds some depth, so it looks like I'm standing inside of the ring. I added a border to this, which looks like this. So the border essentially is just blue, and it's got my logo going throughout it, just to add an edge to it, because I wanted to have a specific border to this design, which we can see in the final. Worked out pretty decently. Now, when I'm making this, I'm sort of thinking of what stuff do I want to be in the background? What stuff do I want to be see-through for the holographics? So like on my body down here, I actually added an outer glow and some drop shadows to me. So I have this sort of, and I added a stroke. So I have a stroke around me. And that stroke the whole time was meant to be holographic. So I'm making a note of that in my mind. Where do I want holographics to be? So let me scroll up here. Let's see what else we got going on here. So I wanted this to be sort of like Bill from Gravity Falls. So I have this sort of, my face is just my logo. There's a bunch of my logos here. And again, this is just for fun, to just like make fun of realtors and be not too serious. So I added a couple of those on top with blurs on it to make it look like it's glowing. And then to make it look like I have stuff coming out of this portal of my face, I have these vector smart objects. And these are just, let me open one. They're really just lines in Photoshop that have a gradient to them, that I sort of added a bevel and emboss to. So let me open one of these up, and I'll show you what these are. I just need Illustrator to, oops. Oh yeah, that's what I did. Okay. So what I did was, in Illustrator, I just have these, you know, oh no, these are, okay. I'm trying to think how I did this. I have these circles, and I just made them specific colors, and then basically blended them together. And what you can do is you can just make the circles, and then you can replace the spleen or spline of a line. So you can just draw with a line and say replace with this, and then it'll blend all these together. You can do it with a blend if too. I'm sure there's a nice video you can find online on how to do that as well, but I added a bunch of those. And I gave them a bevel and emboss so they seemed like they were more 3D. And then actually tacked on a couple of these layers to draw like highlights and lowlights. So they looked like they were sort of these 3D worms. Again, wanted to add really weird, goofy stuff. And that's essentially the whole entity of the card. So I have my main card. Now, what I want to do though, is I want to emulate that if this was printed on a card. So if you're creating a trading card, you might have something like this. And the reason I have this holographic texture in the background is because I can set this layer here to multiply. And this is going to emulate the CMYK that prints. So typically when you're printing, and when I say printing and I say you, I mean sending this off to a professional printer. Because if you printed this at home, it would look like this. There's no white layer. There aren't a lot of printers that can print white. Now there are some UV printers that are coming out on the market, and I'm actually looking at getting one or two of them. Not two. I'm trying to find one to get. I got to figure out which one it is. But those have the ability to print white. And then it prints a resin on top that's CMYK using a resin ink. So what I want to do is show you that you need a white layer. So that's what this is here. So this is the white layer. So if I turn this on and I turn this top one off, you can see this is what is going to be see-through for the holographic. It's behind me, it's on my shirt, it's on the wavy things, it's on the inside of the cards, and it's on the border and text. So I'm going to show you what I would do to create that layer. And that's the whole point of making this video. So what I'm going to do is I have my top design here. I'm going to duplicate this. So I've got 2 of them. And I'm going to give the bottom one a white overlay. So if I hide this, this is what's going to print white right now. So now we need to think backwards and look at everything we made and say, okay, what do we not want to show through? So I don't want the background to show through. So I can turn off some of this stuff, but I want this white to have some white. The grid I want to be holographic. And let me look at the card to see what I made holographic. Like, I don't need this either. And basically what I'm doing is I'm going through and I'm hiding a bunch of this stuff that'll take up all of this basing. So what I can do is I'm going to use a lot of blend ifs. So this here, I'm going to open up blend if. So I'm going to open up the layer styles. Down here under blend if, I want the current layer. I only want the lights to show through. So if I move this over, I can hit OK. And if I turn this off and on, you see it's adding just little specks here, which is what I want. Now, I want the outer glow of me to be holographic, so I can turn off all of these layer styles, and it's just me. But I might want some of me to show through. So actually what I want is I want to turn this whole layer off. So I want my body to have white, but I want the grid lines behind me to be see-through, which is this and which is working. Now what I need to do though is I want the grid lines to show. So that's what these grid lines are here. So what I'm going to do is I need to mask the grid and the background. So this is its own layer. So I'm going to name this background. So what I want to do is I want to mask out essentially, oops, my body. So I can hold down the control key and then I can mask the background and then invert it. But I don't need the grid actually. The grid I want to show up. So it looks like this. So actually I don't need this because it's fine. It's blocking out the galaxy here, so that's fine. The layers up here, and I'm jumping around on this. So this layer, I'm gonna group this together. So these are my wavy guys. I'm gonna use another blend if and do if the current layer is somewhat white. I don't want it to print white, but I want some of it to print. So it's sort of this fogginess going on. And I did something wrong before. No, I did that right. Okay, we're good. So if I just right now, if I go up here and turn this layer on and set it to multiply, you can see what we're going to see through because we're seeing the holographic. And usually what I'll do is I might turn these off and I might set it to a color that is very vibrant so we can see it. So like that vibrant green color. You can see where the green is. So it's showing through here, which is good, it's what we want. We want it to be behind my face. We want it to be behind these. But you can see here, we can see through this area where the border is. So we need to cut out the border. So what we need to do is we need to grab, and it'd be helpful if I labeled stuff. So this is the border. We're going to group this together. I'm going to get rid of this stroke because I put a stroke on it intentionally to be that holographic. And if it shows up white, it shows up white, and that's what it looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab each of our little strands. So these are the rainbow things. Oops. So I'm going to hold down the command key and shift to grab all of these. And we're going to mask this. I'm going to hit invert. So now you see they go through this. So it's showing up how I want it. And if I look at the card, I actually need this on a lot of stuff. I need it on most of this stuff in the background. Usually what I do is I like to group. I put everything in a bunch of groups. So I can go like this. And then it's in front of everything. But it's still behind stuff it's supposed to be behind. So like this and this. So I want to grab these guys now. I'm going to group these together. We're going to do another blend if because I only want it to be part of it. So I want it to be kind of like that. but I want these to show through. So we're going to invert that. We're going to mask out the area of the rainbow things. So those get masked out. And we're actually going to do that as well to my body. So I can group these together and just sort of mask this out. So now it looks how it's supposed to, but I only grabbed one of them. So I need to grab the other one. Let me delete that. Let me go like this and invert it. So those are masked. So it's a lot of masking, and you just have to go with the flow. So you see here, this is going behind it, which if we look at the regular card, it's going behind it. So this is on top. But now you can see when we turn this on, we can see that the holographic is showing through some of this stuff, but not all of it. And that's what we want. So we've got most of the background good to go. We need to do it for the border. And sometimes I'll keep this multiplied layer on just to make sure that things look how I want. So if I drop down these menus, I'm going to get rid of this white. And now we can see we've got green coming through. Everything is good. This is how we want it to be. What we need to do now is fix this text. And we need to fix the bottom. So let me pull up here. Let's start from the top down. So this is the text. So the text usually, which I took off of here, has this stroke on it. So it has an outer stroke and it has an inner stroke. So I'm going to remove one of the strokes. And let me hide this. Let me hide this so I can see what I'm doing. Oh, we can't see anything because we have this back layer. So what I need to do is go down here. I need to find that triangle and basically hide it because I don't want it to print. So this here, hide completely. But I need to take this and remove it from everything down here. So if I group these together, I can mask it and invert it. And now I can see the text, which is what we want. And some of this might be really confusing. You basically need to go in and start removing stuff you don't want and mask stuff behind it. So I can turn this off, turn this stroke on. This stroke doesn't matter. So now if I turn this layer on, we can see down here that it's green. And that's because this layer is set to multiply, and it's basically getting rid of all of this white that's hiding, and then the white behind it is good to go. So we have my name on here. We've got everything except for this front area. In the front area, this I had a little bit of trouble with because it's just a weird area. So let me find me. Where are we at? Is it this? See, I don't name anything, which is a problem, and should name stuff. So here I am. Okay. So I don't need these drop shadows. I don't need this stroke because this is all I want to be white. And this is the wrong layer. So I need to hide this. So I need to do it all down here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the back here. I'm just going to hide all of this for now. So this is what would print white, which is not what we want. We want it to look cool. So we've got me here. So I'm going to get rid of all of these strokes and glows. So it looks like this. And then I can get rid of all the strokes and glows here. But what we want is we want Grid Genius to show up in front of my body, and we kind of want to do it with the glows. So how can we do that? So we can put this into a group together. I'm going to turn this to a smart object, and I'm going to say the current layer, I'm going to pull this over. So it looks like this. So this is something that I can now grab, and I can mask this out. So I can invert that. So now it says this, Grid Genius. It's masked out. If I turn this off and on, it looks like this. So my selection looks actually like this. So it's showing up just Grid Genius. And that's kind of what I want. That looks pretty square on what I want. What I need to do though is I need to select both of these. So I'm going to turn both of these into different smart objects. I'm going to copy both of these. And then on this back layer, I'm going to make another group. I'm going to mask this out and invert it. So when I turn this back on, it should invert through here. Now the problem is I want that glow and all that fun stuff to be masked out of below it. So I need to go back to this smart object and turn all of this stuff back on. Let me just change the canvas. Let me make this a little bit larger. Save this, go back. So now if I copy this, I can hide it because we don't want it, but I want to delete it from here. So then it looks like this. And it looks weird because of that. Let me just feather it. Pixels. So now it looks like this. So right now it's going to show some of the grid genius, but not all of it, which is what we want. So I have that white layer, so I can turn this on. I can turn all these holographic layers on and see if it looks how I want. So now that white behind me is now a line, and you can see somewhat through grid genius, it's got a line around me. There's lines around everything else. And this is pretty much how I want it to look. So if I turn these off, I can just turn this on actually. So this is the layer we just made, and this is the one that I sent for them to print. So if I hide this and just turn this to a black overlay, they look pretty much the same. So I guess what I did on my body here in this one is I gave it a little bit of a blend if. So I can fix that down here. Oh, I guess I turned... No, it's this one. Sorry. So I can give this a blend if, and do current layer. If it's dark, show up a little bit. So now they look very similar. I had less of a blend if, or I did the blend if wrong on my cards, because I want the current layer to stay black, but if it's light, I want it to shine through. So it needs to look like that. And then the bodies look very similar. I guess I didn't do the glow. I did just the outline, but that's fine. But everything looks similar. Okay. So now what the heck do we do? We've got our two layers we have. Let me hide that. So we've got our front. We've got our back. We know it's how we want it to look. So how can I set this up for print? So there's two different ways you can do this. And it depends on who is printing the cards. Let me put this here so you guys can see it. So the company I use to print these is called Matera. They did a really good job on them. They are numbered cards. They're laminated front and back. They feel like what you would get from Topps or Panini. They're really good quality. So the way they need their files done is I'm going to turn this whole thing here, my white layer, into a smart object. So it's just going to solidify everything together into one single layer. This one I'm going to keep the same. We don't need the background. We don't need this bleed anymore. And the bleed is fine. It's just showing where it's going to bleed off. So what I'm going to give them is a PDF file. And the PDF file is going to have a couple layers on it. It's going to have this layer, and it's going to have this white layer on top of it. And that's so the printer can see to print this white layer. But this white layer needs to be a spot color. Because when you print, you have traditional CMYK, and then the printer has a spot color it recognizes, and that spot color is going to be white. So we need to turn this into a spot color layer. So this is how you can do that. I have it all here in one layer. I'm going to hold down the Option key and click on the layer icon so it gives me a selection. I then go up to Selection, Save, or select Save Selection. Name, I'm just going to name it Mask. It's going to make a new channel. And then in our Channels layer, Channels tab, which you might have never used before, we have this mask layer we can turn on and off now. And that's showing us our white layer. The problem is it's inverted. So I'm just going to click on it, hit Command-I, and it's going to invert it. So now you can see this green is where it's going to print white. And if I double click on the mask layer, it says masked area, selected areas. I'm going to click spot color and then hit OK. So now this layer is a spot color. I'm going to go up to Image, Mode, CMYK. I'm going to merge everything together because it doesn't matter. And now we have our file. The problem is it added on to the side because I had Let me just mask it to here. Let me crop it real quick. Yeah, that's right. No, that's wrong. It's 2 pixels off. This needs to be 2000. Ooh, so now I have one file, but the problem is I merged it with that layer turned on, so I'm going to hit Command Z a couple times. So I'm going to hide this layer. So I'm going to just flatten this because the channel layer is hanging out by itself. So the channel layer we don't need to see at all. So I'm going to go to Image Mode, CMYK. I'm going to hit Merge. It merges everything together. I'm going to make this the correct size, which on this template is 2000 pixels wide. So that channel layer is still there, which is good because that's what we want the white mask to be. And then we have our just file. So I'm going to just save this out as something random so I don't save over my file. And it's very mad. So I'm going to save it out as like Grid Genius flattened. But what you can do now is we have our CMYK layer, we have our mask layer. And what you can do too, if you want, is you can export these separately and then like toss them in a separate file so you don't accidentally save over anything. But now I can go to just save as. I don't need to crop. Oh, actually what I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna trim this down to the actual correct size because it's technically not the right size. We wanna make sure that our printer has everything the exact size they need. So I'm gonna make it 2.75 by 3.75. Because what this file is it is a 2.5 by 3.5 file with an 1/8 of an inch bleed. So our mask is still there. Everything's good. The only thing that's different is I made it a smaller size. So then if we hit Save As, we can save it as a Photoshop PDF. So I'm just doing that on a different window. And then we don't really need to do anything. I mean, we can uncheck Photoshop editing, but it doesn't really matter. There's nothing in the layers panel. It's just one layer. And then we're not converting any colors. We don't need to compress anything. I'm actually just going to hit on here and hit press quality and just hit save. So that'll save out. So what did we do? What happens when we save it out this specific way? Well, if I open up this really small file, so the good thing about this is you send a small file to the printer that they can print fine. So this is what we're sending them. So it's everything on here. If I go over here under tools, so I have all tools selected. If I go to view more, what I can do is I can scroll down and one of them says use print production. So if I click on that, I can hit output preview and this is what it's showing me. So it has all of our process plates. It's got CMYK and it has our mask. So if I turn off the process plates, it's showing us that black layer, which is gonna print white of where all the white's going to print. And if we turn that off, it's showing us just what our design is because it's showing how it's going to print all the cyan, all the magenta, all the yellow, and all the black. And then we can turn our mask back on. So this is the file that I sent them. It doesn't have any grid lines or anything, but it's the right size for a bleed. So that's how I made this card. Now, a different company that I have sent some stuff to, let me hit Command Z a couple times, is I would just export these files separately. So I would save this out as a TIFF file. A TIFF file is just a lossless file. And I'm going to name, just put mask at the end, mask. And just hit OK. I'm going to turn that off, turn our front layer back on. We're going to save this out as a TIFF file. And it depends on how the printer that you're using likes files set up. Yeah. Okay, so it's too big because of all this stuff. So I'm going to save this out. No, I don't want to do that. What I'm going to do is image mode, CMYK. Hit OK. It theoretically should merge everything, but I told it not to. So it looks like this now. So I'm just going to delete all this other stuff that's making it too big. And now I'm going to save it out as a TIFF file. So you need to make sure that you export it as CMYK first, which I just didn't do. I'm going to hide that layer, turn this layer back on. And it's transparent in this group, so that's good. We'll save this out as a TIFF file to mask. Then what I'll do is I'll sort of create the PDF for them with guidelines. And this is what I did, and this is how I created stuff for VFriends. So the VFriends stickers that got made, this is the route we went with this. We gave them a white layer and we gave them a CMYK layer in the same document, so it could print at the same time. And each printer is going to have their own individual way of doing stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make an InDesign document, which is opening on a different screen. I'll swing it over once it loads. And I'll pull this over. We're going to make a new document, and we're going to match our document size. So we want the final size to be 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And we want to scroll down to bleed and slug. We want the bleed to be 1/8 of an inch, because that's adding the 1/4 inch around it. And we can just say 2 pages. And they're not facing, but it's fine. They'll be on the same thing. So I hit create there. Then we can go over here. Oh, this has a really funky margin on it, which is fine. But now, once we're in InDesign, all I have to do is grab this, drop in an image placement box. Then I can just go over, grab my flattened front file and my flattened back file. Ooh, that looks wrong. Doesn't that look wrong? Why does that look wrong? Maybe it's fine. That looks weird. Oh, it's because when I exported the TIFF files, they still have that channel layer on them. So we're going to go here, and we're going to delete this mask layer. So then it's just CMYK. Save and quit. We're going to do the same thing here, because the channel layer will show up when you export it. And that's what we're learning. So we're going to delete that. It's a color fill, but that's not what I want. Uh-oh. I'm hitting buttons wrong. I deleted stuff out there instead of deleting the mask. I'm going to delete the mask save. Good thing is, if we're in InDesign, it should tell me in the links, which are right here, that they've been updated. So I can just refresh these, and it'll look like this. So then this is the file. So it's showing where the bleed is going to get cut off, and that's why I add it automatically when I'm creating this, is so I know where that bleed is. If I were to turn that bleed layer on in Photoshop, it would show up exactly where this is. So I'll save this out as a file, save as Grid Genius, whatever. Just hit that. And then if we export this, we'll export it somewhere. I don't need this, but we want to make sure we have crop marks and we're using the document bleed. And then when we export that, we will have a file that looks like this. So it's showing them where to cut and crop it, essentially, and where the bleed is. So it's a different way of exporting these, so you can set them up as a trading card. So there's 2 different ways. Either way, you need to make sure you're exporting CMYK files, and you need to make sure that you're paying attention to whatever that white layer is going to be, whether it is a mask or whether it is a physical layer that you're sending them. And it takes a while to figure out, what the heck do I want the mask to be? Let me turn these off so we can see it. So all this is going to print white. I was really happy with how these ended up. Let me pull up just my camera to show you this here. And hopefully it doesn't get too blown out. I needed to really focus on this. Focus on me. It's not going to do it. But I mean, if I hold it back here, you can see it is very shiny, which is exactly what I wanted. And I made a couple of them. That's just one of the designs. There's a different one. And this one is a little less shiny. You can see on Phantom it's shiny, and in the background it's pretty shiny. And there's a lot of stuff I realized I wish I would have done. So I think on this, there's like white in the background. I think I would have made that just all holographic. Similar to this one. It's mainly, you can see it around like the edge of me and the Vector Visionary text. I think I would have made all the rainbow stuff at the bottom completely see-through so you could see it. And then this one's a little bit more structured. Oh, hold on, I hit play on accident on iTunes. This one's a little bit more structured, but the whole background you can see. Basically, the folders are opaque, but it's just thinking when you're designing it, where do I want strokes to be that show up as holographic? Where do I want the background? How much of the background? And from doing this, I think I'm learning I like to have, I think more of the background showing through is better than not a lot. So that's why I kept handing these out, because I think they look the coolest because they've got most of the holographic showing through. And then when you get them printed, you can just tell them, you know, what paper you want it on. I just did generic rainbow, but I'm sure they have cracked ice. They've got a whole slew of options depending on who their vendor is. But I just wanted to hop on here and show you how I would create that mask. It's a pretty long video, but hopefully it was helpful to someone. I want to get on here, and I'm going to pop back here again. Yeah, that's what I thought. So what I want to do is I want to hop on here more often throughout the week for about an hour to just chit chat with people, see what you guys are up to, take questions from people on designing stuff, how to get their own cards made. It's a lot of work I try to do as much work up front as possible, so when I pass off the files to the printer, there's no issues, everything works. And that's sort of what these were. These were tests to test the quality, test if my process is working, see how the numbering is, see how they feel in your hand. And to me, if I grab a regular card, this is just a random Topps Chrome card from VeeFriends, but they feel the same in my hand, which is what I want. I want the same feel as something you would get from Topps Chrome. So now that I have these cards, the goal is to make them for someone, whether it's an online personality, whether it's someone in the card community, whether it's an athlete. That's just something that I want to do. I just enjoy creating cards and doing stuff like that. So take a look at some stuff I post on social media. If you want a card made by someone, go tag them on videos that I ask them to, because it's hard to get a hold of these people. You know, DMs get lost in Instagram or Twitter. That's why I thought it was great that I was able to hand some of these out to people I respect in the card collecting content community. So it was cool to be able to hand them these cards, give them to them at the National, so show them the quality in person, because I got a bunch of these made, and I got 400 made total, 100 of each. And it was less than like $2 a card for pricing for people if they wanted to get cards done. The more you get, the cheaper they get. I think if I would have gotten 250 made each, it would have been about $1 a card. But everybody has their own budgets. But I thought this was just a really cool design. And it was cool to pass them out, and people think they're also cool. And I think they could come in handy for people. You know, if people have sponsors or a charity they want to raise money for, you know, depending on their fan base, I think it's a really easy avenue to, you know, spend $1,000 to get a bunch of cards made, sell them all for charity for $20 each. If you sell all of them, that's $20,000, most of it profit that you can then donate to a charity. And then people in your community have a cool card to collect, or a cool memento. I mean, if they're making cards for Jimothy at the Mariners game, surely people online can make their own cards. And that's what I want to do. But I think if nobody has any questions in chat, the couple of you who are here, one of them might be me watching. I have no idea. I think I'm going to call it there. I am going to be streaming tomorrow, but I'm going to be streaming on Whatnot to sell some cards. So if you like cards and you want to buy some from me, hop on there. I might be giving away some of these. I haven't decided yet if I want to do that as my giveaways, but I might. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to be doing this a lot more. I'm going to try and stream from like 2 to 3, like 3 times a week. That's my goal. Just depends on how much gets in the way of client work that actually pays the bills. But hopefully one day I can pay the bills with this. So I've got some stuff I need to do on the back end here for some clients, so I'm going to do that. But I'm hopefully going to see you guys again sometimes next week, just to hang out here on stream and do whatever. So I'll see you guys next time. If you guys want to like and subscribe to this video, I'm sure it'll help my channel. But